right. I know that music anywhere. It must be city business time. That's Siesta Ocho. This is James Moore. You're listening to solar-powered KRUU-FM. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we are 100.1 on your FM dial, also KRUU-FM.com on the World Wide Web machine. And we, like the mighty Mississippi, roll 24/7. We never sleep. Well, some of us do from time to time, but the station goes on and on, 100% locally produced, 75 programs a week. It's a kaleidoscopic hub of cultural, creative miasmaplasm here. And speaking of Fairfield Media Center in the house, Jason Strong back there doing his thing. We are really delighted to bring to you the latest from City Hall with the one and only Michael Halley, who's also a show host here Friday nights with Matt Molyneux for a reasonable alternative. Michael, how you doing today?
Good, glad to be here.
Well, good to see you. You're looking like $1 million for all our radio listeners. For our television viewers, they already know. But what's coming down the pike at City Hall?
All right. This is a summary of sorts of the April 27th regular City Council meeting. We had a bunch of claims. Now, we always do a claim amount where we approve expenditures, but this was rather a little larger than usual because the company building the pool, Riccio, have been sending in their invoices because they're working to complete it, looking for early June completion date so that the kids coming out of school will have a place to swim.
And early June is just right around the corner from May.
Yep. So they're really
booking
out there, working hard. So the claims were more than double what in a given month, and so it's for that specific project. So that was noted by our city administrator, just wanting, that's one thing the council has been asking for, is a little bit more detailed financial information, just so that we can do our jobs, which is helping in that regard, helping manage the city's funds. We heard from a couple of groups. First, we heard from a member of the Jefferson County Fair Board. I didn't get the gentleman's name, but he's been doing this. He's been on that board for 32 years.
Wow.
And he's just finishing up this year, retiring. He introduced the gentleman who will be coming next year to request the parade route.
Gotcha.
I didn't get the actual date, but what is it? Always in later June, I think it's. So they come down Broadway, Main to Briggs.
I think it's the week after Fairfest.
Yeah, and because it's late June, early July generally, or the last parts of June. Then we heard from the Fairfield Beautification Commission. It's a city commission, so just an organization under the city's nonprofit status, I think is the best way to describe it. Mm-hmm. Received some funding from the city, from the local option sales tax, to ideally partner with other organizations for beautification projects. So they showed basically like a year in review what they did last year. They did a lot of work in that area of what's called Heritage Courtyard. It's at the corner of South 2nd and Burlington. It's got the brick patio and then the monument that says Fairfield and some plantings. Well, that parking lot is a city parking lot, but it's been neglected. Mm-hmm. And so they put in some tree plantings and some bushes and all these nice plantings. And then they work specifically with Cambridge. Cambridge Investments has a policy that their employees are allowed 1 day off a year to do volunteer work.
Right.
So they find a group, and they paint the back of the buildings that face that courtyard. So they showed before and after, and it was really quite a big difference. They also manage the flower baskets that hang around the square. They work with the Chamber of Commerce to get the merchants to help out with that. They put in some planting on the nice sign at the bypass by the hospital. Mm-hmm. So they're just busy doing that. One of the projects they did, I thought, let's see, there was a painting project. I guess that was the back of that building, but they got the paint donated for that. So they're able to stretch their little budget to do this different works. Oh, I remember they did a 175th cleanup. They said it wasn't that well attended, and that was part of that 175th thing last year. And even I didn't know about it, so there was somehow it didn't get the word out. But they were looking for 175 hands. Now, that would mean, what is that, 77 people and then one-handed person, I guess. Or
a three-handed person.
Yeah, you could have a three-handed person. That might be better. So somehow they're going to get the 175 hands, but
Great.
they didn't quite get that number. But it would be nice to bring back that cleanup effort that we used to do. Street sweepers balls, what it was called, or weed. We'd go out and pull weeds. Might be good to bring that back. Maybe not annually, but every so often. They did a big cleanup prior to Ragbri coming through, and so I don't know. Like when I have company, like I have a friend staying with me, an old college buddy. So I make sure the house is kind of clean. Like, oh, I should do those dishes, before he gets here. Like everyone spruces up. So it's the same with the city. If we have something coming up, then you want to make it look nice. So it's great to have them.
So they're not doing the housing refurbs or renovations. Like when I was there for 3 years, I think that was the main focus, but it sounds like that's not what's...
Well, that was when I heard they were doing a painting project. I thought maybe it was going to be a home because I know they've done that. But
that
has kind of been picked up by Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, cool.
And their Brush with Kindness.
Fantastic.
And that is something I know spoke to John Loyne about, and he's on their board, has been for years, something they would like to expand.
Cool.
There are other communities that do multiple houses each year, so they would love to be able to do more than one. They actually, it's kind of a side note, but it's interesting. They've been working on a partnership with the vocational department at the high school. So these are students who are studying electrical wiring, plumbing, contracting, all that kind of thing. And these other communities have used those students as volunteer labor, but because they're a step up from someone like me who shows up, and I have some experience in some things to do with construction, but I am not in any way somebody who will touch wiring or plumbing or anything like that. They can save money on building these houses by using the vocational students because they're hungry for experience, real world experience. They said they couldn't get it set up for next year, but I think they're hoping the year after that, or maybe they couldn't set up this year, but they're hoping sometime soon to get the vocational students, and they could do 2 house projects.
Wow, that'd be awesome.
One pretty much just those students, and another the way it's been done with his volunteer labor, except for the parts that require skilled labor. So volunteers do not do the wiring or the plumbing or the HVAC or those things. Those are done by professionals, and that's part of the budget.
But it's great for kids to be able to see how they do that. And I remember when we refurbished here and the electricians came in, it was really fascinating to see, the wiring and how it's done.
Yep.
It's up close and personal, a great way to learn.
Yep. So hopefully we'll see that come to fruition. I would love to see the Habitat for Humanity be able to expand. They asked me to help with volunteer recruitment. I told them I'm pretty much a green light on that because it's just such a good cause. I love the model, and it's a small way that I can help outside of my city council role, just help out in bringing these kind of quality homes to Fairfield. Okay, bunch of little action items. We're moving forward on the street reconstruction on 3rd between sorry, a second.
On 3rd Street we're talking about?
Yeah, between Iowa Avenue and Harrison Avenue. So I think it's 2 or 3 blocks. So just a little segment there, trying to move forward on that. The way this is managed is the Public Works Department works with engineering, and they identify streets that they want to get done. And then the funding comes in all these like jigsaw puzzle ways. And so you'll see these little pieces, and you're like, how many people really drive on that street? Why are we doing that when this one seems more obvious? Well, the funding worked to do that small piece. That's what the funding was able to cover that year. Now the gas tax just went up, so there's going to be more coming in.
And that's statewide, right?
Yep. So the communities like us will get a little bit more to do street repair.
Cool.
Which is great because it's just an ongoing thing with any city.
This neck of the woods, there's always going to be streets cracking up with as much change in temperature.
Freeze thaw. Yep. We're moving forward on the sale of the former MRC recycling building at 102 South 23rd. So we'll have a public hearing on May 11th. That's our first council meeting in May at 7 o'clock regarding putting that up for sale.
And that means anyone interested in that to come or have questions about it? Or
actually, we're currently taking bids. Okay. So if anybody's interested, contact City Hall, and you can get a tour of and you can read over the appraisal just to try to understand why it was priced the way it was. Though the city knows we're not going to get anything close to that appraised value. Let's see. We're expanding this Libertyville Road heading west from Highway 1. There are a bunch of houses out there. It's right by the hospital.
Yes.
Has historically been on septic. A lot of those were outside. The city's sewer line didn't extend there, but we want to include them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're moving forward. There's a public hearing about that expansion on.
And folks, if you're a listener feeling like you've heard some of these things before, you have. That's the way City Council works. It comes up, then it's approached, then there's a number of hearings, and then it finally gets approved. And so that's the process. And if you're a regular listening to City Business listener, you know that. If you don't, that things are in process, things are starting. Always a good reference, though. Yep.
And again, we're moving forward on the bonding, the borrowing we're making for the pool and gym project.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, again, the May 11th meeting will be the official authorization of moving forward on those general obligation bonds.
And again, the pool, you're hoping for an early June?
Early June, yeah. And just to go back on that project, Mike Harmon, our city administrator, did say that the reimbursements for the CAT grant, they're beginning to do those, because the way the project works is you spend the money, you show them your receipts, and then they give you a percentage. And so now that we're spending, because the pool is getting close to completion and the gym is starting, we'll be sending in to get that $1 million that we got from the CAT fund, or the CAT grant. Moving forward on the no parking in that right-of-way on House Highway 1, South Highway 1 by the new Casey's, just to increase safety, because semis were parking there. It was making the visibility a little bit difficult. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended a change to our subdivision, our legal subdivision description in the ordinance, and simply that if you have a property and there's one point on every property that's usually frontage, meaning it's by a road that's accessible to emergency vehicles, we don't want to see subdivisions where a part of that property that doesn't have any frontage is subdivided, because they would be not able to get to have the emergency services. We prefer not to have that. And so it's not really a problem. There are a handful of properties maybe in town that have that currently, but moving forward, just for safety, that the property should have some frontage, that should be along some access road. So did the first of 3 readings on that one.
Okay.
A little sad news, we weren't able to get, everything's got a silver lining, right? We weren't able to get this owner-occupied sustainable housing rehabilitation grant. I guess it was too competitive. We thought we had a pretty strong application, but we were told, sorry, we didn't get it. But the $21,000 to $22,000, I think, that we had set aside from next year's lost is now freed up. So the mayor let the Ways and Means Committee know you guys can meet and talk about that and how, what you want to do with that.
Well, Fairfield could sure use a few more bucks.
Yep, I'm sure there are a lot of groups that could. So, Ways and Means will.
Is that something that is it open for people to make petition to, or is it something they're just going to decide?
I'm not sure. I mean, technically they finished the grant process for that,
right?
But
so they know what people have asked for.
But people have come back. I mean, before groups have come back and said.
But they know some got. I mean, the beautification committee got almost all they asked for. Some didn't. So yeah. I mean, I just wondered how they're going to factor that.
I'm not on that committee, but I think it's factored based on community impact for the dollar,
cool,
that kind of thing. Yeah. So I mean, I know one group got 100% of what they asked for, but they asked for like a few hundred rather than several thousand. So it's not the percentage as much as it is how much of the total pie is allocated to a particular project.
Sounds good. By the way, you're listening to City Business. This is James Moore, who is station manager here at KRUU, also one of the committee core members for Fairfest. And you're learning how city works, and this is really fascinating. What goes in, things are asked for, they come back, how things are decided. Fascinating stuff. We hope to get the county in on a leg of this as well. We've had our state representative many times in the past, Kurt Hansen, so we might be able to keep this Tuesday slot just going with that if we're able to do that. But I will say this, City Business, you can hear after each city council meeting. It'll come the next lunchtime at Tuesday following the Monday City Council Hall meeting, and then dinner time 6:30 p.m. Thursday, rebroadcast as well the following Monday, breakfast time at 6:30 a.m. It goes up also on the Fairfield Media Center website. You can see the living Technicolor if you want. If you're man enough, I think I have a face for radio. I prefer that part of it. But at any rate, what else? Back to Michael Halley, 4th Ward Council person who's coming in and keeping us up to snuff.
Well, the mayor had one other item in his report, and that was, it was discussed later in our projects update, but that the skate park that was finished last fall, but it was finished rather unceremoniously because it was just trying to get done. It's going to have an official opening June 6th. So the skate park is one of these community amenities that was only possible because of a generous donation by somebody. And then that inspired another generous donation that'll fund a basketball court. It's going to be right by there. So they're aiming to get the court ready in time for June 6th.
Cool.
So noon to 2, Spawn Ranch is going to bring in some non-professional but better than average skaters to do a little exhibition.
Nice.
Kind of show what's possible with the park.
Very cool.
So that'll be fun.
And you think the basketball court will be ready by then?
That's the plan.
Because then the mayor can shoot a three-point.
Yeah. He's a pretty good three-point shot.
Yep.
I used to have to cover him and pick up basketball. And he's, even though he's got some years on me, it was not easy because he's good.
Eagle eye, like my older brother. I don't know how he could do it, but he never missed.
Yeah, some people have it. All right, we had a bunch of committee reports, and I know how much you enjoy the committee
I live
process.
For them.
Yes, I think you do. So.
But actually, seriously, the committee process, I will say this just as you jump in, critical thing if you want to be involved in city politics, committees bring things through there. Just like, if you think about it as the state government, or even the federal government, it goes through committee, then out of that committee it's recommended, then it goes to the full house, then it moves up the process. And it's not exactly like that for City Hall, but it is. If you're interested, the committee meetings are open, and unless they're closed, mostly they're open. And if you have a particular area of interest, that's the place to be, because and then it works up the other way, I say.
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead with
All right. One of them was the Jefferson County Service Agency. So this is a group. It's comprised. I think I did that before on this show.
Dr. Freud.
There we go. We're compromised. I just compromised myself. 2 county supervisors, 2 city council members, and the 5th member is a impartial citizen. Happens to be Tammy Jones.
Oh, who's partial? I'm partial to that impartial citizen. She's working with us, of course, with Fairfest and everybody else in the community.
So that person chairs the meetings, and so
wonderful.
We have that group. It exists mainly to make decisions about the law center because it's owned by the county but leased by the city.
Gotcha.
So it's called a 28E agreement, is any sort of intergovernment agreement. So between county government, city government. But we also have a 28E for the recycling center that's open 6 days a week at the corner of 9th and Gear. It's Connolly.
Okay.
It used to be waste management.
Right.
But that's a service that costs money. And so for years, the split was 40% was paid by the county and 60% by the city. Well, the contract expired in August of last year, but no one really noticed, and Connolly was happy to keep going. So we're reviewing it now. The city side, we have single stream recycling for our residents, so we feel that there's less of a need for people to use that than maybe there was in the past. Also, the funds that we're bringing in to pay for that don't add up to what we're paying. We're using the residential collection to kind of subsidize that service. So
gotcha.
There's some talk of maybe switching those percentages, that maybe it is more important for the unincorporated people in between the cities that don't have any sort of pickup service, that they may need it more. So I'm going to talk to the county about it. We'll meet again in June and see if we can find a way to make that agreement equitable. I'm not going to say more equitable, but just equitable. Also, there's a tower they want that MediaCom is donating to the county, and they're going to use for all their emergency broadcasts instead of the one by the courthouse.
Right. And
it's out on Walton Road. MediaCom's even willing to paint it and just add some little tweakage and some ports before they donate it. Just so happens it's on city property, so we're trying to get the county attorney and the city attorney to find a way that we can just transfer it. That we don't want to have some sort of complicated lease agreement, that the county can just own it and manage it themselves. But they're really happy because it'll enable them, all their services, to reach further without dead spots. That the tower by the courthouse isn't ideal.
It's also very old. I know people don't even want to go up. We've been talking about, maybe putting up a tower here, which obviously won't be required now. But that is, I know that's been a concern there. Plus, it's kind of, it'll be it's not an eyesore. It's a tower, but it'll be out of there.
Yeah. Or there's something on there that, like some local Wi-Fi or something that maybe needs to be moved. But you're right, the tower is unsafe. Our police chief said that the repair guy won't even climb it, refuses to climb that tower. So that could be really good. We got a public safety transportation committee, talked about Fairfest. So Eric Richards was there, Richard Sarnoff was there last night.
Mm-hmm.
So we agreed to the same street closures last year and all the same parameters, but we did agree to, I think it was 4 nights of the beverage garden instead of last year it was just 1.
3 nights, I think it'll be.
3 nights, okay. Yeah. So that passed without any hiccups.
Great. And that's the great Tammy Jones, who's in KMCD, Steve Smith working with us. It's a great team. Erica Richards. And of course, we just hosted the Chamber After Hours party there with the KMCD and the Convention Center. Had a great time. John Shermer winning the design art protest sign. No, the art poster sign.
See, I'm not the only one.
Compromise and protest, baby. So, but at any rate, a beautiful design that he did for Fairfest, and that'll be an annual tradition too. And Gene Lutke was there from Carnegie, and I just want to say before we get away from this particular show, Michael, we've heard about the passing of Lee Gobble, who just an incredible person and soul for a long time, a great booster of Fairfield. And I know Carnegie's going to be doing at Fairfest an exhibition of the Chautauqua Festival from 1915. So 100 years ago, it cost $1, which is the equivalent of $24 now, but to come and stay at Chautauqua. And it was considered one of the hottest festivals or the events of the summer for the state of Iowa. And it's sort of a little bit of that tradition. And I'm just thinking of Lee Gobble being exactly 100.
Yeah.
And I know he's contributed a lot to Carnegie. It'd be fun almost to do some kind of exhibit there with him as well. We'll talk to Gene about that.
Yeah, tribute.
But what a great guy. And a personal note, when we had our first town meeting for getting the radio station, the idea of what we're going to do with this possibility, he came. And at the end of it, I just remember him saying, with the energy you have in this room, you can't fail, which meant so much at that time when we were just scrambling to, not having done radio and get it all up and going. And here we are, 9, almost 10 years later. But what a great, great soul. I know many of us have stories like that because that was an encouraging person, colorful and interesting. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
You may want to share a thought or two.
Yeah, Lee was... what they say in the paper, champion of all things Fairfield. Lived here, went to Parsons, had the men's clothing store in a square.
So I remember from back in the 70s.
And just like an iconic person who he just had a lot of wisdom. I remember he talked about, I think it was the 80-10-10 rule. It would be 10% of the people on either side of an issue are kind of extreme, but 80% of people are pretty reasonable.
Interesting.
It was one of his little pearls of wisdom.
Wit and wisdom, right?
Yep. And he was a flirt. He was Valentine's Day. He always gave out those little Hershey kisses to every woman, every single one. And he's just
a people person.
He'll be missed.
Yeah, and a great iconic. But 100 years old. That's a lot of living.
Yep.
That's really something. So Lee, rest in peace. And I know you touched a lot of people here. Just wanted to say that. So what else you got on the docket?
The Environment Committee met. We didn't take any action, but we learned from Ideal Energy. They're educating us on these different types of power purchase agreements or direct purchase, the whatever investment you make, how it pays off.
In time,
solar.
Yes.
Yep, in time. So by educating committee, then the committee can then educate the full council at some point. We also talked to the gentleman who wanted the city to pass a resolution asking IPERS, the retirement fund for the city employees, to divest from fossil fuel companies. And my fellow committee member and council member Darren Hamilton, I felt was very gracious and said, let's work together and maybe tidy up the language into something that the council could be more comfortable passing, because the language was even in my more pro-green viewpoint, pretty strong. And so we're going to work with them and see if we can get something that.
And this was presented to committee?
Yeah, because it came to council and then it was deferred to committee.
That's right.
It took us a little while to meet. I apologize to the gentleman, but it's kind of how it goes sometimes. But
well, that is a point. Committees meet
as needed.
So it's not like the council where
we don't have a regular schedule.
But obviously, if you put a request in, that it's one of the things that may trigger whatever.
And I was waiting for Ideal to be ready for their presentation, so we had more than one item. Property committee granting an easement along Walton Lake. There's some area of this. The managers wanted to clean up some of the brush, but it was city property, and he didn't want to touch it without talking to us, which was, I thought,
cool,
nice of him. And then Economic Development Committee met actually before council yesterday.
Oh, I saw Adam out there waiting to get.
Yep. So there's a road called Lincoln Avenue. So we have the roads that go east-west that are south of Burlington or the Presidents. So we got to Lincoln, which I thought was great. It's our southernmost road that runs that direction. And we want it to run to what we hope is going to be a housing development, but it doesn't reach far enough. So we're looking to use the TIF district. That includes the Pilot Grove property, the New Casey South, and Merrick Inn. And there should be the funds in there to extend that road and extend it to the property line of the developer, who is very, very much wants to move forward. But you can't really build development if there's no road there.
Wait a second. Actual building? Somebody wants to build? I don't mean
build
to
housing.
No, I'm just saying we need it. It's fantastic, but there just is not a lot of building going on these days.
Because it's hard for them to pay the infrastructure cost and then be profitable. So that's where this would come in handy.
Fantastic.
So we're hoping to get that done this year. Again, I gave an update on the pool and gym. The pool should be done mid-June. The gym sometime next year. If you go out there, you'll see things getting torn down and things being put up. It's exciting times. And then Melanie Carlson, who always gives a project update and includes a map. And I posted that map for anyone who's interested. If you're on Facebook, as most people are these days, if you go to City of Fairfield Government, there's a map that shows this season's, at least so far planned, this season's construction projects. So it'll show the roads, it'll show where the wastewater and the water projects are going to be and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like a nice overview.
Excellent.
So we see what we're up to.
And that's a Facebook page?
Yeah, the City of Fairfield Government. It's a Facebook page.
And I bet there's a link from the city website too. And if not, it doesn't matter.
The city website could be more interactive. I think the Facebook page is superior in some ways.
Okay. Well.
In terms of getting news out. But in terms of finding what you need, go to the city fair, fairfieldiowa.com.
But you know what? Either one, and it's all there. And like the magic of the internet, it's all there at your fingertips. And speaking of which, do you have a final thought, or we're out of here?
We watched the 20 Ingredients of an Outstanding Downtown. It's something that the Visitors Bureau is doing, is basically rebranding and looking at how can we make our town even more pleasant to visitors.
Impossible.
I know. It seems that way.
You can always do better. And speaking of that, it's Siesta Ocho time. Michael Halley, thank you so much for dropping by. This is James Moore with Jason Strong, FMC, FACC, FCB, FEDA, ABCDLB.